Pop-up. This is another video. I just thought of that right now. Oh, I'm such a not a genius when it comes to bad jokes on the internet. And I also think like I hurt my back the other day. Anyway, here I am in another video about pop-ups in Chrome extension. So in the previous video, all I showed you how to do was if you add a browser action with a button, when you click that button, you can have a web page pop up. And in this case, I have an entire P5.js sketch animating as part of the pop-up. But why would I want to have a pop-up? Well, one of the reasons why I would want to have a pop-up is to provide an interface for my Chrome extension that might change some settings, to have some place where I could enter some information, to show something related to what's on the web page that I'm on. So in order for that to actually happen, I need to have some way of communicating between the content and the pop-up. Now, one thing that's important about Chrome extension, I haven't actually used the word scope, but I think it's to mention this. Before, when I wanted to communicate between the background script and the content script, they live in different scopes. Each one of these things lives in its own bubble. The background script, the pop-up. The background script, the pop-up, the content script. All in their own separate bubble. So, only the content script is allowed to mess around and know about what's on the content page. The pop-up knows nothing about that. And it's not as if you could just make a global variable and use the same variable in both places. They're different scopes. There's sort of a trick to getting variables from the background script, but that's another story. Now, so what I need to do is I need to have a way of sending messages back and forth. Very similar to how you might do this in a networked application. I have this thing running over here and this thing running over there, and I'm going to send a message over here to make this thing happen. That's what I need to do. The nice thing is the API, the set of functions that I showed in a previous video for how to communicate from the background script to the content script, I can use that same functionality to communicate from the pop-up to the content script. So what I think I'm going to try to do, let's come back over here, is first I'm going to get rid of this maze thing. It's kind of interesting, but I'm going to go into my P5 sketch. I'm just going to kind of delete everything. And I'm just going to say function setup and function draw. And I'm going to say no canvas. And I'm going to put some elements on the page like, I don't need this anymore. I don't need the sound library. Oh, that's interesting that I could have sounds. I'm going to put some elements on the page. So I'm going to say type paragraph replacer. And then I'm going to make an input element with an ID called user input. I don't know, is that how you do it? Do I need to close it like that or just put a slash on the end? Something like that. I'm going to put that in like a paragraph. Then what I'm going to do, let's see, this looks weird, but I feel like I messed something up here, but I'm just going to leave it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to reload my extension, and I'm going to press the pop-up. I say, okay, so now I have this paragraph replacer. What I want to do is anything I type here, I'm going to replace the content on the web page with anything I type there, just as a demonstration of how you can communicate between the two. And remember, I could send from the content script. So one thing I might like to do, for example, is, I actually have an example, I'll link to that from here, is what if I'm on a web page and I like select a word and then I press this. I'm going to do this as a coding challenge. So I select a word on the web page, I press the button, and it goes to an API like WordNick and finds me the definition for that page. So we'll do that as a coding challenge in maybe the next video, actually. But in this video, I'm going to do something simple. And I just need to have this messaging go back and forth. So how do I do that? First, let me just weirdly make sure messaging works. And I'm going to, actually, no, let's, I don't need the draw loop. There's no animation happening. You could have an animation. What I want to do is I want to say user input equals select. So I'm using the P5 DOM library to grab that element. And that says user put, user input. Then I want to use the user input dot input. There are two events that can be associated with a text box. One is the event called changed, which only happens when I like press enter or tab out of that. And I could maybe have a submit button or something, but I'm actually just going to do it as I'm typing. So the input event is an event that happens every time I press a key. So I'm going to say pressed, user key pressed. Oh boy, terrible name for a function. I can't even tolerate it. New text. We'll call this new text. So I'm going to write a function called new text. And here, now I want to send a message to the content script. So all I'm going to do now to make sure this is working is send a message with what's in, like this is the message, user input.value. So whatever is in that text input box, that's going to be the message. So a content script actually already has code to receive a message. It already has code to receive a message because that's what I had in a previous example, and I actually don't need to change it. I do need to think about how I'm going to format that message. My background script that I did in a previous video has the code to send a message. This is how I send a message. Now the thing is, how do I get the current tab's ID? So this isn't going to work exactly. Let me move this into here. The idea that I'm going to do here is right now I'm going to craft a message as a JavaScript object. Then I'm going to send that message to the tab that I'm currently on. I could actually send it to other tabs, but I'm going to send it to the tab that I'm currently on. How do I get the tab that I'm currently on? Okay, so what I need to look at is the Chrome tabs package. I don't know if package is the right thing to say, the API, and that's here. So extension/tabs. This is a set of functions that I can employ to sort of figure out about the tabs. So one thing I could do is just probably get current is all I need. Actually, in some of my examples, I noticed I'm using this query to like query about all the tabs, but I think all I need to do is say get current. So get current just gets the current tab, which is what I want. So I am going to say, first what I need to do is say Chrome tabs get current and a got tab. So I need another callback, and I'm getting into this sort of like crazy nested callback stuff, which I really want to try to avoid, and some of the new arrow syntax and other promises stuff. I'll get into that at some point to kind of, but I think this is fine. So right, the user presses a key, new text, and someone suggested that I call this change text, which I think is better. Then, as soon as that happens, I want to say, which is the tab? What's the current tab? So I need to get the current tab. Once I've got the current tab, it should be the actual current tab is passed into my callback as an argument. So once I do that, I could just send the message to that particular tab. I'm going to send the message hello, right? I'm not actually doing anything of value yet. I'm going to send that message hello, and let's see what happens. So now, let's go and let me in the content script, I'm console logging the message. So I'm actually just going to console log the whole message. So we should see that in the content script. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reload my extension. I'm going to go over here to this page. I'm going to open up the JavaScript console. And when I do this, I don't see anything yet. But as soon as I start typing in that paragraph, I should see here the message coming through. That didn't work. So let's look at let's inspect this element. Let's look at the console. Oh, tabs.getCurrent cannot read property ID of undefined. So you might need permissions. So thank you. Breaking news from the chat. First of all, Simon, thank you. Simon suggested that I call it change text. And I probably need to add, anytime you start to use something from the Chrome API, I need to explicitly say in my manifest.json that I intend to use this. So I don't know if that's the problem, but we're going to have to figure this out. So one thing that it could be is that I need to go to my manifest.json and add something like permissions. Is permissions already in here? No. Permissions. And this should be maybe an array. Oh, it's an array, I think. and it has tabs as one of my permissions. So this could be the thing that fixes it. Let's try it. I kind of think that I might have done something else wrong, but let's try it. So I'm going to reload this. I'm going to reload this. I'm going to open up here. Yeah, it didn't work either. I'm really just way too in love with my sound effects. I probably need an intervention about that. All right, so that was not the error here. I'm going to think about this a little bit. Do you know what's good to do? Read the documentation. Get the tab that this script call is being made from. May be undefined if called from a non-tab context. For example, a background page or... Oh, that's the wrong sound effect. I'm the worst. I just or pop-up view. So that's definitely the problem, and that's probably why what I actually did in one of my examples is use query. So let's use query. So let's try using query. So I'm going to change this to saying, I'm going to go back to my content, where am I? In where am I looking in? The pop-up, yeah, in the pop-up. I'm going to change this to chrome.tabs query. And what I need to do if I'm going to run query is I need to give it some parameters for the query. Like it says optional, but I want like all of the active tabs. And I want, I think it's only active or current window. And current window. I might not need these, but I recall doing this in a previous example. But it's up to you to sort of read this documentation to see what tabs you want returned. So I need that. So now I can query for all of those tabs. This is now, I want to say got tabs because what I'm going to do is get an array of tabs. I know that the query function, probably if I look at the documentation, it explains gets all the tabs that have the specified properties. There might be a way for me to just get only the current tab, but I'm pretty sure that tabs index 0 is the tab that I want. So let's try this now. I think we're in good shape here. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say reload the extension. I'm going to come over here. Press the pop-up. Oh, seriously? How could that not have worked? Let's look at the tabs. I'm going to say got tabs, and let's console log it. And now let's try this again. To reload the extension, I'm going to not use my ridiculous sound effects anymore because I'm overdoing it. I'm going to reload the extension. I'm going to press this. Oh! Of course, now it works. I probably just missed clicking save or reload or something. Anyway, so I think it actually did work, but that's how I would have debugged it if it hadn't worked. Weirdly enough, I'm behind by one reload, right? Because now I'm not seeing my messages. Save. Am I not saving in the right? It's behind by one reload. Let's reload. Let's refresh. Weird. Oh, no. I made the classic error. I'm looking for all of my messages here. Only the content script messages will be there. If I want to see the pop-up messages, they are here. So that is working. It's an array. This is the information. I got lots of information. It's an incognito tab. What URL is it on? What's the width? You can see there's lots of information that you can get. All right, we're in good shape. Let's move a little bit more quickly here just to finish this off. So what I actually want to do is I want to send, what was it called? I called it user input.value. And what I want to do in the content script is rather than change the background color, I'm going to change the inner HTML. I think that's what I write, to message.text. And I'm not going to bother to check if it's a certain message. There's only one kind of message I can get. So as long as I've gotten a message, change whatever the paragraph text to that message. Okay, here we go. I'm feeling good about this. I think this is going to work. And I'm going to reload the extension. I'm going to refresh this page. It's got some paragraphs on it. I'm going to feel confident enough to actually close the JavaScript console. I'm going to open this up, and now, here we go. Oh, that's the worst. I really shouldn't have done that. All right, I shouldn't have closed anything. Let's try this again. Let's look at... let's look here. Oh, what did I put this semicolon there? Probably all of you noticed this, and you're about to watch like an extra 2 minutes of this video. I could edit out this mistake, but probably going to leave it in. Let's try this one more time. Reload the extension. And, oh, no. And now press this. And now I'm going to type into the paragraph relacer. I'm going to say, hello. What did I miss this time? This dot style is not relevant. I had dot style because I was changing the background color. Inner HTML is not a part of the style. It's just part of the element itself. So I think it's going to work this time. I've corrected this. Everything's good here in terms of my syntax. Let's try this one more time. Okay, here we go. I am now going to reload the extension. Refresh the page, press this button, and start typing. Yay, look, whatever I type into here now goes into every single paragraph element on the page. This worked! Exclamation point. Thank you very much. So this has been the end of this sending a message from a pop-up to the page. And I'm going to do a coding challenge, which you'll find at some point when I publish it, where I'm going to actually take content from the page and display information while querying an API, information about it there. So I'm going to do that in a coding challenge soon. Thanks for watching.